Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisam Tattvamasyadi Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. So welcome to the Vivekachudamani class. Swamiji is away. I think he gone to Edmonton?
Many places.
Many places. So he'll be back next week. 21st. 21st?
24th.
24th. Okay. So in the meantime, then we will try to, as best as we can, try to continue our study. The Friday class is on Vivekachudamani. This is a beautiful original composition of Shankaracharya that starts with the question of a person who has understood, who has come to a state of understanding that the phenomenal world and life as we normally understand it is insufficient, does not satisfy that person's aspirations, and he feels that there is something deeper, something higher to aspire to and to realize, but not knowing exactly what that is or how to get there, he comes to a teacher. That's where the Vivekachudamani starts. And the first verses are actually by the student expressing this feeling of kind of frustration that I know there's something else to be sought. I know there's something deeper, some deeper reality than the phenomenal world that I see around me. But what it is, I'm not sure, and how do I get there, I don't know. Can you please help me? It's very interesting that Shankara has said in other places that teaching cannot begin without a question. You should never answer a question that's not asked. Because why? Because it will fall on deaf ears. It won't be effective. There is, you must have heard the story of somebody who comes very casually and asks for information on directions to such and such a place. And I think it was perhaps Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda, who didn't respond. He said, it's quiet. And he asked again and again, and each time he simply didn't respond until the person got really annoyed and started walking away with some energy. He said, no, now I'll tell you, because now I see some life in you that you want to know the answer. So the fact that this very important book starts with a question of a student, not a student who's already at a certain stage of evolution or realization or spiritual experience, but a person who has a question, who has understood that status quo is not acceptable. There must be something more. A person comes with that eagerness to know there is something, what is it? Then to such a person, the teacher opens himself up and starts addressing. And if you remember, the first thing this teacher says is words of reassurance. Ma bhaishta vidwan. You're a learned person. He addresses the student as a vidwan already, the beginning. You're a learned person. Why? Because you have the depth of understanding to know that status quo is not the answer. There's something deeper. That already makes you learned. And to such a person, he says, you learned person, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There is a way. There is a path. It's the same path that the wise people in the past took. That very path I will show you. That's how the first words of the teacher to the student, that you are a vidwan because you have correctly understood that just if you take life as usual, day to day, I'm born, I'll die, I get up in the morning, I go to sleep at night, same thing after and after, without questioning, who am I, what is this world that I live in, what is the purpose? Without asking those deeper questions, that is ignorance. But the learned person is all that asking is ask the question. And to such a person, the teacher opens himself up, and this Vivekachudamani is the result of that. And he goes very, very methodically and slowly and deliberately to the thing. Now, in the series of verses that Swami is presently covering, he seems to be asking and answering a very, very important question, and actually sometimes goes back to where this whole thing started. He said, what's the point of knowledge? What is the point of knowledge? Because a lot of this is about what do we mean by knowledge, what is real knowledge, how do you acquire it? The question is, what is the point of knowledge? There will be some who will tell you that, this knowing these things abstractly, it's not practical. It's not really going to help you in life. It is maybe good for philosophers. It's good for some armchair inquiry. But we face troubles in life. We have our ups and downs and these things. And this knowledge, what is the point of this? And this is not as it is a real question. It does come to all of us sometimes. We have to be a little bit practical, we think. In these verses, Shankara is actually telling you the immediate consequence of even intellectual knowledge. This is another important point, that don't think somehow that the deepest spiritual understanding is going to come all of a sudden. If it does come all of a sudden, the problem is that if it does come all of a sudden, we won't know what to make of it. And it'll probably go away all of a sudden too. In spiritual life, it's all steady, silent growth. Where I am, steady story. And each of us has a different starting point, maybe different positions. We move in different ways, at different speeds, doesn't matter. But it is our growth that's most important. And so we may ask ourselves, so therefore I was saying that when we talk about knowledge, we may say that you may sometimes feel that I'm just talking about something academic or intellectual, and that don't waste your time studying philosophical discourse. Don't the Upanishads are too abstract. They're not practical. That kind of idea, Shankara is saying, is in fact fallacious. That is, it is a fallacy to hold that kind of view. That even intellectually understanding something will have immediate consequences. It'll have immediate consequences for the quality of our life. And therefore, don't underestimate the power of study and the benefits of study and discussion. Of course, there is a problem in going off and thinking that's the only thing either. It's not meant to be purely just an intellectual study, but intellect is a tool, not a tool to be ignored or to be neglected. It's a tool to be used. Just as other aspects of our personality are also to be developed. Our emotions are also not to be ignored. They are to be strengthened, purified, and directed in a way that will help us in spiritual growth. Similarly, for our restlessness, our desire to do something, we can't sit still. Yes, that's okay. Even that has to be directed, purified, strengthened, and directed into a way that is constructive and helpful for our spiritual life. And similarly, sometimes our feelings, sometimes we want to just be introspective. Don't disturb me. So I don't want to talk right now. We feel like that kind of indrawnness sometimes we feel. That also has to be taken and recognized and strengthened and disciplined and turned into meditation. So all of these things are aspects of our personality that we can direct towards a spiritual goal. So the intellectual side is not to be neglected. So here, if I can go back a couple of verses, what he's saying is that the direct effect of knowledge is not to get disturbed even when in difficulty. By the way, I should give one caveat in studying a Sanskrit work. If we are not masters of Sanskrit, we are at the mercy of the translator. Now, my experience, unfortunately, I'm not a master of Sanskrit, so I'm at the mercy of the translator. But the point is that, therefore, you at least should recognize that limitation and park somewhere in your notebook, which, by the way, all of you should have. Never come to a class without a notebook. I can't understand how students can come to a class and expect to study a book unless they have a steel-trap memory. You hear it once, you got it, like Swami Vivekananda. But rest of us need to have a notebook and to study and review. But here, so what is he saying? The direct effect of knowledge is not to get disturbed even when in difficulty. So the translation is, we'll just accept it as it is, but keep in mind somewhere, record in your notebook that it is a translation, and so it has to be constantly revisited. Okay, even illumined people, even if you're reading, this is from Turiyananda, which is exceptional, to be able to get his way of translating a verse is very exceptional. But even with illumined people, keep a note that it is an interpretation. Okay, always keep that in mind. So therefore, someday when you have the knowledge or the ability, you to go back and examine the verse again. Okay, so but here's the translation. This is the direct effect of knowledge, not to get disturbed even when in difficulty. I think it's a beautiful statement. You see, he's juxtaposed something that you talk about knowledge as something abstract, theoretical, and turned it into something which is of immediate relevance. Who amongst us will say, if I give you a tool by which you can keep your calm, keep your presence of mind even when in difficulty, who would not want such a state of mind? And what he's saying is that the direct effect of knowledge is not to get disturbed even when difficulty. So that's something to keep in mind. Why am I studying this thing that looks so far above where I am? Why is it I study the nature of the Atman or the nature of consciousness when my ordinary experience is about how do I handle the things that happen in daily life? Because knowingly or unknowingly, it gives you a certain strength of mind by which, when difficulties come, your peace is not so disturbed. It may still be disturbed a little bit, but it'll be even more disturbed if you had not immersed your mind in this kind of thinking. Okay, so already he's giving you a totally practical point, very important point here, that the direct effect of knowledge is not to get disturbed even when in difficulty. The different kinds of things that one does in ignorance that are awkward and ugly, when one is illumined, how can he do them? Okay, so the different kinds of things that one does, if you go, again I tell you, I'm sorry, I have a kind of like a broken record. You'll hear me say something repeatedly. You have to have a notebook. You see, you're not going to remember. It's not for anybody, it's for yourself. You're not going to remember. And the notebook is not to say, record what others say. The notebook is to record what you're thinking. You see, as you listen to somebody talking about something, you'll get your own ideas. You want to write them down. And the same notebook you should also have for a spiritual diary. Okay, many people keep a diary that just records events. That's not bad. A spiritual diary is about the kind of things that you experience while trying to live a spiritual life. And if you keep a diary, you will understand your spiritual sadhana will become more effective. Like you say, today my mind was disturbed. When I sat for japam, I couldn't concentrate my mind. Okay, then another place, and today I had very good meditation. And I sat, everything good. Now you have to ask yourself, well, I want to be in that state. I want to be in that state where when I sit for meditation, I'm able to concentrate my mind and I feel the spiritual presence. So then I have to ask myself, why that day my mind was disturbed and today it's not? There's a reason. You see, we are all scientifically, we have a scientific temperament, we have a scientific disposition, and so you have to ask, there must be a reason. If one day my mind is disturbed, another day I'm able to easily concentrate my mind, what's the reason? Your diary will tell you. Diary is not for just recording, gossip or what happened. It's for your own spiritual thing. It's a science. This whole thing is a science. The science of the mind. And so, if you want to find ways in which your own spiritual progress will be accelerated, you have to have data. And you are your own data. Your mind is your own data, not somebody else's mind. And where will you get that? You have to record it. So that's why I insist that you should keep a spiritual diary for your study, for your own reflection. And you'll be surprised, the more you make a habit of this, the more wisdom comes from within yourself. And I'll guarantee this to you, that the secrets of spiritual life are not in the books. They're things you will discover for yourself. As you practice, as you experience, you'll discover things that are not in the books. even a small discovery of that kind will give you so much enthusiasm that it makes a big difference in your spiritual life. Patanjali says this in Yoga Sutras, that even the small experience gives you great encouragement in spiritual life. Why? It's my own discovery. Actually, it's not only in spiritual life. You know, if there are any academics here, you know that if a student is able to solve a small problem by themselves, that gives them so much more encouragement than if somebody is telling them, much harder theorems or much harder ideas. Little thing that I figure out by myself gives me a lot more encouragement. So keeping your diary, reflecting, and drawing on your own life, your own experiences, can give you a lot of strength in your spiritual life, and I guarantee you will make your own discoveries. And when you study also, you study this verse, even with the broken Sanskrit, you try to make it out and you try to record what you've understood by it, you'll feel the benefit of that a lot more. So therefore, you must practice this. So therefore, keep in your diary record that this is the kind of translation that Swami Turiyananda is giving here. One interesting thing about an illumined person like Swami Turiyananda, he's not going to give you a literal translation. So it's good and it's not good. It's not good in the sense if you're a stickler for what does the verse actually say, it's not good. But it's good in the sense that anything coming from the spiritual, illumined mind will be pregnant with meaning. So you want to capture that. So he's sort of taken this kind of general translation. Direct effect of knowledge is not to get disturbed even when in difficulty. The different kinds of things that one does in ignorance that are awkward and ugly. See, in reflection, we do many things every day and in our life. And as we get more and more experience, we sometimes look back, why did I do that? Why did I act like that? Or why did I do that? Or why was I so fascinated by such and such a thing or such and such a person? In hindsight, I see, it's okay. I should have seen it in context. I shouldn't have been swept off my feet like that. So the different kinds of things that one does in ignorance that are awkward and ugly when one is illumined, how can we do them? So, and I also emphasize this word illumination. See, the word here is paschan, one who sees. The actual word in Sanskrit is one who sees. How can they do that? He says when one is illumined, how can he do them? So that means that when we have that knowledge, even illumination is not also a binary state. It's either you're not illumined or you are illumined. It's a process of growth. And so even if I have intellectual illumination, in a sense, even if I have intellectual conviction, that already gives me a way of looking at the things I've said and done that puts them sort of in proper order. So this verse tells you, it's a very important thing, that the whole immediate gain in this study is that it'll help us in the way we act in our daily life. The things that without it we might have regretted, as he says here, awkward and ugly. The different kinds of things that one does in ignorance that are awkward and ugly, relatively speaking, from this vantage point, those actions, the way we act every day, are kind of awkward and ugly. So, but from this perspective, you'll act and behave in a different way. Now, you can say still it sounds too abstract, sounds too esoteric, even though he's saying that. But you can bring it down. You see, we live in a very unique age where sometimes these things that sound very esoteric, that are hard to understand in any other age, in this age are relatively easy to understand. Why? Because you have three great exemplars. So in this context, whenever you're talking about anything about behavior, the person to try to see something in the life of, to see how do I tally this, is Holy Mother. Holy Mother will teach us how to behave. Everything about her teaching, the consequence is how to behave. And I don't need to tell you, in her life all the things she had to do. So here is his point is when one is illumined, how can you do them? How can your behavior be awkward and ugly? Well, think of it. What is the main thing that Holy Mother taught us? Make everyone your own. Make everyone your own. Feel the oneness, the unity of people. So even if I understand illumination as not as something that I'm enjoying with my eyes closed in a certain state, but as an awareness that, look, there is some interconnectedness here. That there is no disjointedness, there is a harmony, there is a unity, and that the people I'm seeing are not separate from me, but connected to me in some very close way. That already has an implication for the way we act. So, while here you can understand this in some exalted way, that when you have some immediate perception of the unity of consciousness, yeah, maybe such a person will act in a certain way. But long before that, if you can understand theoretically what Shankara has said, or rather Advaita says, and then look to Holy Mother's life for the implication of that. Yes, if really there is a unity of consciousness, there's unity, a spiritual unity, then there's nobody which is separate from you. That's exactly what Holy Mother said. Make everyone your own. Therefore, my behavior has to be according to that. And that's how we get beyond being our actions being awkward and ugly. Because you're with your own people. So that awkwardness and ugliness. See, where does awkwardness and ugliness, where does it come from? It comes when I have to pretend to you that I'm something. My ego. I have to preserve my ego. Where does awkwardness come from? If I'm totally natural with you, it's because I have nothing to prove to you. Right? Awkwardness comes from, if I cough, what will they think? If I say this, what will they think? It comes from that kind of unnaturalness. But if I'm with my own, I'll cough, I'll put my feet, I'll do whatever, I'll just be totally free. Right? That awkwardness comes from sense of separation. So this verse is a really beautiful verse. It's saying that the direct effect of knowledge is not to get disturbed even when in difficulty. Number one thing to note. Second thing is that when one is illumined, how can you do anything that is awkward and ugly? And understand that illumination, remember, he's connecting two things that are apparently unconnected. One is a high state of spiritual experience, and the second is action. So by putting them in one verse, he's saying they are connected. And how can you understand that connection? It is, as I said, through Holy Mother. So when one is illumined, one feels a spiritual unity, and therefore you act accordingly. Okay, I'm not illumined, but I know the great teachers have told me that there is spiritual unity. How? Make everyone your own, fine, behave in that way, and therefore my actions will be maybe less awkward and ugly. Okay, any questions on that one? This must have been covered a couple of weeks ago, maybe. This is verse 421. Any questions on that? Comments? You feel free to interrupt, by the way, and ask, make your comments. That way we can all learn. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Also, you've done this before as well. This is the effect of wisdom, to refrain from taking unreal things, or if taking, to take them as the work of ignorance. Okay? Again, he's telling you the effect of knowledge or wisdom. This is the effect of wisdom, to refrain from taking unreal things, or if taking, to take them as the work of ignorance. That means to take means, what is missing here is to take something which is unreal to be real. Something which is impermanent as if it were permanent. You know how it is, sometimes we get into a way of thinking where we think it's the end of the world if something doesn't happen. It's the end of the world if I don't get something. Or it's the end of the world if so-and-so, if I don't have the company of so-and-so. People fall into that thing, especially at certain stages in life. And what he's saying, so what's happening is I'm taking the changing to be as if it's unchanging. I'm taking the unreal to be real. Remember, the word unreal in Vivekachudamani is according to Shankara's definition of reality. Constancy in time. Okay, that is real, and the same thing with true. That is true, which is constant in time. It was, it is, it will be. Okay? So when you say, when he talks about unreal things, is this unreal? I can feel it. Well, from this definition, it's unreal because it didn't exist at one time. It exists now temporarily, and in the future, it won't exist. Okay? It doesn't mean that now it doesn't have a temporary reality or I'm not temporarily experiencing it. It does. Otherwise, people get into this kind of contradiction of Advaita, saying, "Oh, the world is unreal." The world is unreal. The person saying it is also unreal. If we go that route, right? So as long as I am conscious of myself as a separate entity, I'm also conscious of you as separate entities and the world, and it's real. The moment I give up that I exist as a separate entity, then I'm in a position to say the world is really unreal. Okay, not before that. As long as I'm conscious of myself as a separate entity, I can at best give philosophical. Philosophically, I can assert the Advaitic statement, but in actuality, no. That's why the other day we were in a class. I told we're all Dvaitis. We're all Dvaitis, no matter what we say. Why? As long as I'm conscious, I think this body is real. It's like let's have this class on Advaita and then let's have dinner afterwards. There's no question of dinner for an Advaitin, right? An Advaitin actually won't. If you're really an Advaitin, why will you even breathe? The fact that I'm living and I'm conscious of myself as a separate being and I'm doing something to preserve my body and my individuality shows I'm not an Advaitin. Nevertheless, that is the principle, that is the philosophy, and I can work towards it. Again, so it's important to understand the goal and the path. That's why Sri Ramakrishna sometimes cautioned people about, when you talk about Advaita, he wouldn't talk about Advaita to everybody. He'd be a little cautious. If you say I and Krishna are the same, you're not the same as Krishna. So therefore, but those who but to Narendra he did, partly because he could experience it, and partly because he understands that the difference between what I experience in a certain state and what I experience in the state of duality. So therefore, in this current state, there are a lot of things that are actually real. I'm real, you're real, my experiences are real. Pain is real. Yes. Pain is real. So therefore, don't say if somebody's crying, it's unreal. Don't say if somebody is sad because they lost somebody, hey, don't you know we're all mom? That's not the thing to say or do. You have to console them because that is real at that time. So this is the effect of wisdom, to refrain from taking unreal things, and the right way to say it, the impermanent things, as if they were real, or to take them as the work of ignorance. We have seen that in the mirage. The mirage is a good example. Mirage, you think you see something which looks real, and not only real but attractive. You're thirsty, and you think you see water. Okay, it's not as if you see, you're thirsty and you see a spaceship. What's the connection? Right? I'm thirsty and I see a spaceship. I'll ignore the spaceship. I'll still look for water. I see something that is desirable. That's the importance in the mirage. And so I go after it, and then I discover it's not there. Now, once you discover it's not there, depending on the maturity of our mind, we will again go after it, or we will not. To confirm the first. No, suppose you confirmed it, okay? So you saw a pool of water. You went there and you tried to jump in and it was just sand. Okay? Now what I'm saying is, according to the maturity of our mind, we will say, just a minute, what happened here? That was a mirage. Okay, so then, it was not real. I pick myself up and walking, and again I see the pool of water. Depending on the maturity of our mind, we'll learn faster or slower, but eventually we'll figure out that is a mirage, so there's no point in running to it. Swami Vivekananda tells this story, that he was actually wandering in Rajasthan and he sees the mirage. First he thought it was water, and then when he realized it's not water, next day he was walking, he saw it again, and then he said, this is a mirage. Now sometimes we will not learn that easily. Sometimes we have to learn again and again and again and again until we figure out, I know I've been there before. Especially, you see, if you think this is, too abstract an example, think of people trying to diet. You see? This is the simplest example. This is the mirage. You see? I know it's not good for me, but I do it. And again and again and again, I do it. So this is the point that that's how these deep philosophical ideas are actually experienced in our life. And we have to go through the same thing, and so therefore you can take now. You see, you can give a new perspective to dieting. It's part of your sadhana. This is a mirage. It's not real. The cake that's looking at you is not real.
So you can joke about it. We lost your weight and we didn't.
I'll keep samosas in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a mirage.
Yeah, no, that's right. Samosa, that's right. The samosa looks there, and then you know that after you have 10 samosas, you feel kind of full. So next time you shouldn't take that, but next time you do. What is that but a mirage? It's exactly the same thing. I know what it is. I've experienced it. I've analyzed it. I've come to a logical conclusion, and yet next time I do the same thing. So what does that show? That shows mind is a creature of habit. Okay. Therefore, if you want to change a habit, people often have this problem. They want to change their habits and they fail. Why? Because they don't know the laws of the mind. Mind has laws. It follows. It's a very deterministic thing. You see, we think we're so free, but mostly the mind is, to a large extent, very deterministic. You can predict what it's going to do based on the past. You can almost predict. So therefore, if you want to break a habit, there's only one way to do it. You have to create a new habit. Don't waste your time trying to break this habit. Because after all, what's attracting to me to the samosa, it is because I think it's very tasty. The only way I can give that up. Exactly. You got it. See how she's a sharp, very sharp mind. That's right. Or a party shapta or something. Something that the point is that your mind is going to get attracted to something. And the question? Yeah, please.
Party shapta or something. What is it?
Party shapta is a Bengali sweet. It looks like a little dosa. But what they do, a lot of Bengalis here, you put some kind of sweet paste inside and you roll it up, and then you eat it like what's those things called? A wrap? Yeah.
It's a seasonal sweet.
Whatever it is, it's good. Malpova. Malpova is
It's
also good.
something like malpova.
Yeah. Now Swami is going to hear this tape and say, "What were you guys doing?" Okay, so we got the point. Okay, let's not go off on a tangent on this. But point is, how do you change your habit? It's only by creating another habit, and that other habit that you try to create has to attract your mind. If it doesn't attract your mind, you will not be able to change it. That's why people say, "I want to lose weight, and I will do this." But the point is, the consequence of losing weight is not particularly attractive. Not as attractive as a samosa. Until you find something that will actually pull your mind away, you won't be able to break this habit. Okay, so how do you get that other thing then that's going to pull your mind away? So there are two things involved. Firstly is to get that other thing. What is that other thing that's going to hold your mind? And secondly, it's to have basic strength of mind. Okay, so there are two challenges for you. One is to find what is that other thing that will hold my mind. Second thing is to get basic strength of mind. So you know how people go out every day and they go for a walk or a jog or they go to the gym, and you ask, what did you achieve by that? Okay, I went jogging or I went to a walk. What did you achieve by that? Because you just went around the block. You're back where you started. What is this? You just ran all over the place and you came back just where you started. Why were you running? I said, no, I wasn't running to get anywhere. I was running to strengthen my muscles, improve my breathing, improve my heart. That's what I was doing. Well, now, did you ever think, is there something like that for the mind? Well, there is. There are many things you could do for the mind. And if you do that, what happens is you develop basic strength of mind. Now, a person who exercises regularly, suppose a person who exercises regularly has to suddenly do something, like run for the bus, or lift some weight. They can manage. Suppose somebody who's totally sedentary suddenly tries to run for the bus, they can have a heart attack. They've not created the physical culture by which the body can deliver the strength needed to run for the bus. Or suppose you don't do any kind of exercise, you suddenly try to pick up a weight, you'll hurt your back. Even if you bend your knees and whatever, you do all the things they tell you to do, you'll probably hurt your back. Or if you don't hurt your back, you'll be really wiped out at the end. You'll have to rest for a long time. Whereas a person who exercises regularly, they do exactly the same work that you do, but then they're fresh and they can go on. Why? It's a strength that you have to develop. It's not in terms of some specific task that you did, just a general strength that you develop. You need to do that for the mind. So the two things about changing a habit is you have to have a lakshya, that's something that is going to pull your mind, and second thing, you have to have general strength of mind that is able to move from one to the other. And you'll see this. You see that if you practice these spiritual disciplines actually correctly, they will also give you strength of mind. But there are also purely psychological disciplines you can follow as well that will give you strength of mind. So when you have that, that is how you can change your habits. That's the only way you can change your habits. A, you have to regularly practice things that will give you strength of mind. And B, you have to create a new lakshya. Now that new lakshya, how do you create it? That's the other thing you have to learn. So to do that, you have to understand what is liking something. On samosa, how did I get to like samosa? That's a long story, I can tell you. How did I get to really like samosas? Well, the Gita gives you 2 verses that tells you how that happens. Jhayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu pachayate. That which you constantly think about, an attachment is created. Jhayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu pachayate. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. That attachment deeper, that becomes desire. First, I'm constantly thinking about it, I create an attachment. You keep enforcing that attachment, it becomes desire. Kama. See? So now the desires are many, but our ability to satisfy desires is limited. What happens? I get frustrated, angry. Kama krodot bhajayate. Krodat bhavate sammoha. From anger, I get confusion. When we're angry, it's hard to think straight. From anger, sammoha, so sorry, buddhi pranasiti. Yeah, so that means that. So let's say, jhayato vishan pumsa sangasteshu pajayate. Sangat samjayate kama krodot bhajayate. Krodat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhrama. Memory goes. Smriti vibhramsat buddhi naso. My intelligence goes. You find sometimes people give you crazy reasoning. They call it's not even, you can't even sanctify it as reasoning. Some crazy ideas, and they tell you as if it's a reason for doing something. It doesn't make any sense. So your intelligence, buddhina asat pranasite. Once your intelligence goes, you're on the way to one. Where did it all start? Thinking about it. Repeated thinking about it is how I got into that position. Now you understand what japam is about. You see, what Krishna taught as the downward spiral, you can also take as the upward spiral. Why don't I create an attachment now? I know how to do it. He told me. What I constantly think about, I get attached to. Fine. Why don't I think about the things I want to be attached to? Let's think about Sri Ramakrishna. I do that again and again and again and again and again and again. What happens? I start getting an attachment. I miss it. If I don't get it, I miss it. Now, how do you do that again and again? Because you think, I gotta get a headache by concentrating on the picture. It's not like that. By constantly thinking about it means I can look at the picture, I can sing, I can read. Anybody who spent a little bit of time reading the Kadamrita, in whatever language, you feel the company.
Yes.
You feel that you're with him. Right? What is that? You're creating an attachment. This is a good attachment. And you intensify that. I'll tell you how to intensify it. So after you read, close the book and reenact it. Whatever you read, reenact it. Okay, at first you'll find it's hard to do because you don't even remember it. So then you have to chop it up into smaller pieces. Just read one paragraph, close the book, reenact it. You are sitting in the room with Sri Ramakrishna. Enact it as much. That's what M did, by the way. He didn't write he didn't go home and write what we see now, read as the Kadamrita. It's much later. He said every page of the Kadamrita he's meditated on thousands of times. And so that's how that's how you can create a spiritual attachment. And now, what's stopping us from doing that? You see, you can say, I can't concentrate my mind, I can't get absorbed in meditation. What's stopping us from reading the Kadamrita, closing the book and imagining you're with Sri Ramakrishna? As long as you can. I read one paragraph, okay, I tried to imagine it, now I'm tired. Okay, fine, open the book, read the next paragraph. Keep on. Nice thick book it is. You won't run out of material. What's preventing us from doing that? Nothing. That is what spiritual life is about. It's not about saying that, like a checkbox, did I do this much japam today? or was I seen going to the mandir? Did people see me at the Vedanta Society today? Doesn't matter what it's all about what attachment are you creating for your mind. That's it. This is what Sri Ramakrishna meant, that if a thorn is stuck in your foot, you use another thorn, remove it. People who tell you be detached, you've heard that? Gita says be detached, so therefore be detached. How do you think you're going to get detached? You will never do it. It's always about attachment. I'll be detached to this only when I'm attached to something else. So therefore, here's the open secret. Swami Vivekananda actually gave a lecture on this called the open secret. There's nothing that is preventing you from doing this. It's within the reach of everybody. You can create a spiritual attachment. So the way to create new habits, whether it's about spiritual life or it's ordinary life, anything, if you're getting attracted to something that you know is not good for you and you want to change it, you've got to do two things. You've got to create another laksham by constantly thinking of that, and secondly, you have to create mental culture, mental strength by a variety of disciplines that you probably can figure out for yourself. So those two things, that's how I can get beyond this. And then the way attachment is withdrawn, as attachment was created, attachment is also withdrawn. You know this actually, you've all done this. When you think back in your childhood, there's some things, toys, yeah, it must be like, if somebody touched your toys, probably you'd start crying. If you don't see somebody, like a small baby, if they don't see their mother, they start crying. But we grow up. Not that our love is any less. We still love those people like as we did before, probably more. We appreciate more what they did for us. But we don't react in the same way. And then there are some things that we simply realize, the toy was good for me at that time. I don't need it now. So we all know, we practiced detachment. We did it. But how did you do it? You grew up. You got interested in other things. If somebody tried to pull that toy from you before you got interested in something else, you would cry. And that's exactly where we are now. There are things that we are attached to. And if somebody tries to take them from us, we will cry. Actually or metaphorically, we will cry. Until the time comes when our mind is focused on some higher ideal. And how will you get there? The easiest thing in the world. Totally easy. Spiritual life is easy. And it's also very pleasant. It is simple. I mean, the amount of material that's been given to us in order to create spiritual attachment is just, you sit with this around. If you like Kadamrita, Kadam is enough. If you don't like, if you like something, you want some variation, you got 9 volumes of Swami Vivekananda. And you've got Holy Mother's teachings. And if that's not enough for you, you've got Gita, you've got Bhagavatam, you've got Mahabharatam, you've got Quran, you've got Bible. All these things in which great spiritual souls are telling you things that will hold your mind. Yes, it won't hold your mind forever, but it'll hold your mind for a while. and you create that habit again and again. My mind goes in that direction, that direction, that direction. I create a desire. Remember where we started off in Vivekachudamani? The spiritual aspirant said, there's a problem. I have a desire for something more, but I don't know what it is. I don't know how to get there. So we have to awaken that desire. Once the desire is awakened, you're on your way. Sri Ramakrishna said, desire like the rosy dawn. Once it's there, realization is not far away. From this point of view, you see how easy spiritual life is. It's a miracle that we don't make more progress than we should. It's a miracle. We just refuse to help ourselves. So from where did we come? From samosas to spiritual realization. It is all in our hand.
To the bug. To the bug.
There's a bug, yes. The bug is also interesting. It's a little bit of a distraction, but if you want, since you pointed out the bug, the point about the bug is the limit of the vision. It's seen Abhijit from going towards it. The limit of the vision. So we have a bigger vision. We can see this whole room. There's another dimension, and so oops, don't.
That's in the socks.
Okay, it's over.
No more distraction.
Anyway, the point is the vision is limited. So I don't know that there's a big room out here. And sometimes now you think our life is also like, we're like little bugs crawling. Sri Ramakrishna said we're like ants. Even in our spiritual life, we're like ants. And he says Sukha is at most a big ant. Sukha is a big ant, but we must be like, what are we? So that's the bug also can tell us that you have to somehow or other get a bigger perspective. If you yourself can't see, listen to people who tell you. Yes, maybe my view is only this, but I can hear, and people have told me there is a bigger reality. Listen to that. Okay. So this is the effect of wisdom, to refrain from taking unreal things as if they're real, or if to take them as the work of ignorance. We have seen that in the mirage. Now, so that's where we started. Mirage, if your mind is strong enough, you'll learn it quickly. If your mind is not strong enough, you'll learn it slowly. But you will learn it. It's a mirage. It looked like water, but it's not real. Yeah.
You mentioned about exercises of mind you can do. Could you give some examples? Like what
Yeah. Okay. Let me just finish this verse.
Okay.
So in the mirage, depending on the strength of mind, we will learn sooner or later. And what better example is there than this for the wise one? So for the wise person to understand that there are such things as mirage, I've seen them and I've figured out, I've understood they're unreal, then I can analyze all of my experience. What is real in this? All of my experience, I can start analyzing from this point of view. Just imagine, the thing that I held as if like without it I won't be able to live, well, I'm still living and I don't have that thing anymore. And I myself gave it up. Then if that's the case, what about now? The thing that I think is so important that without it I can't live. Maybe that's the same thing too. So the wise person will start examining like this, and the wiser we are, this is the sign of wisdom, is not about how much we know, it's not even about what we might have experienced, but the strength of the mind to learn. Strength of the mind to learn. So I've seen this as a mirage, and so I won't be fooled. I won't be fooled this time. I still may see that multiplicity, I may still see those experiences, but I see it, I understand what it is. I won't be fooled this time. Okay, so you're asking about exercise of the mind. Is that clock really right? Is it 8:25?
Yeah.
So we didn't even start today's verse yet. But the nice thing about these books is that exactly that there's depth and depth and depth of wisdom.
You get engrossed in it.
You can get engrossed in it, and what better way to spend time than to get engrossed in this? You see, the more you do it, the more. Remember this one principle. If you forget everything else we discussed today, you can create spiritual attachment. What you expose your mind to, what you color your mind with, you will get attached to it. That's the law of the mind. Sri Krishna told us. And Patanjali also tells it many times in Raj Yoga. It's just habit. Mind is a creature of habit. Whatever you expose your mind to, eventually it starts liking it. We think we're so free. I have my likes and dislikes. I'll tell you frankly, if you tell me you like something, I can tell you guaranteed that came about because you filled your mind with that for some time. At some time in your life, you let that thing occupy your mind. That's it. And so the beautiful thing therefore is we can create spiritual attachment simply by exposing our mind to these things. Okay, now you ask about mental exercises. So it depends on your temperament. I can tell you a few that I know that are effective for me, but you will have to figure out your own. They'll go from the simplest kind is, and also if you want to combine it with your spiritual practice, because you can have, you see the point is, holy people have strong minds, devilish people also have strong minds. You see, a strength of mind is no guarantee by its in and of itself. It's not a guarantee of spiritual progress. Okay, it's a tool, only a tool. You have to know the limits of all these things. Everything is a tool that you use. You use the right tool, you can achieve your goal. Use the wrong tool, you won't be able to achieve your goal. And if you mistake the tool for the goal, also you're wasting your time. Okay? A strong mind is not an end of itself, it's a tool for whatever it is I want to achieve. If you're an athlete, you need a strong mind too, because the psychology of winning is a whole art. As you know, people who are in the Olympics, part of their training is physical, but part of their training is mental. Same thing if you're in any creative work too. So the psychological part is there. So I will tell you the disciplines, some of the disciplines, but then you've got to somehow find a way to yoke it to your spiritual life as well. So one I already told you is, and I will tell you again, you'll see my prejudice, but so you accept it with a grain of salt and you modify it as you like. I would say the best thing to use to practice is Swami Vivekananda's complete works. So open it up somewhere. He wrote so simply, like a baby can understand it. But read a paragraph, or read a page if you like. Close it. Tell me, what did he say? Okay, I'm not there. Write it down on a piece of paper. What did he say? 3 points. Okay, you read a page. Tell me 3 things that he said. I'll tell you, first time you do this, you won't know anything. You won't be able to remember anything. What happens? Fine. Go back and read it again. Now close it. Tell me, what did he say? So you try. You keep doing this. 2 things will happen. Firstly, you learn to pay attention when you read. And second thing is, you start feeling the company of Swami Vivekananda.
Sorry? Did I miss that?
Sorry?
I just missed that.
No, you start feeling the company of Swami Vivekananda.
Oh.
I tried this experiment once, and if you find complete works not your cup of tea, do something else. I tried this experiment once, a long time ago. I got on a train in Delhi. I was going to Bombay. It was 24 hours journey. Okay. In Delhi, I was introduced to a brahmachari, and actually the brahmachari was in Hardwar. But anyway, he told me, read Reminiscences of Swami Vivekananda. It's a book, you must have all seen it. It's a short chapters, people saying what they, okay. So in Delhi ashram, I bought it, got on the train. I was determined before I reach Bombay, I have to finish this book. Okay, so all I did is read. And partly there was a little bit of time for meals, I had meal and continued to read. I even fought sleep and kept on reading. So fine, I finished it. Actually, it's not that long ago, but I finished it. I'll tell you, the hardest part of finishing it is the part of you that says, no, it's enough, now go, take some rest. No, it's not, you don't need to read that much. To resist that and finish the book. For 1 week, I felt Swami Vivekananda was walking beside me. So that's you see, the point is, you can argue, is it my imagination or not? It doesn't, totally irrelevant whether it's my imagination. The point is, even your imagination can inspire you. You have holy company. Why? Because the mind was just forcibly soaked in that thought. And not in a monotonous way, not as like, Swami Vivekananda. But I'm reading different people's reflections about him. So all sorts of things associated with his life, constantly barraged, the mind had that barrage for 24 hours, and you feel his presence. Sri Ramakrishna said, if you can weep for God for one night or one day, you will have realization. You'll feel the presence of God. I think that's real. I think it's absolutely true. I don't know about you, but I can't get that emotional to weep for God for a day. I'm simply not like that. But I can read for a day. Yeah. That's a simple practice that you can do. And then the other thing is, I said, read and close the book and try to repeat what. And third thing is to reenact what happened. Is that works well with the gospel. Gospel is Sri Ramakrishna. Read a paragraph, 2 paragraphs, whatever it is, close it and reenact it. Who was there? Who was there? I'm sitting in the room. Who else is there? And then, some miraculous thing happens with all of these things, something that apparently is miraculous, but it will give you great happiness. You discover that the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna has many things that are there but not stated. They're sort of hidden in the text. And you'll get them if you do these kind of exercises. I'll tell you one example. I often quote this example. There is Sri Ramakrishna is seated on the small cot, Narendra is present, and a bunch of other devotees are also present. And Narendra is arguing against something, or something about, not exactly that God doesn't exist, but something against the kind of that maybe something, at one time he didn't believe in Advaita, right? So arguing against something. So the Kadamrita says the following. The Narendra was arguing. The master said, "Hello, what are you saying?" And he touched him. Okay. And the gospel says Narendra left the room. And the conversation continues. That's all it says. Narendra left the room. Now, if you meditate on that, let your mind get soaked in that and you be there, you'll understand why Narendra left the room. You see, Narendra has 2 things. Firstly, he doesn't want to express his emotion in general. And second thing is, the master's touch is magical. We know that because we've seen it, we've read about it in other places. Put those 2 together. That touch must have suddenly wiped out all his rational arguments. And he must have been overpowered by some kind of spiritual emotion. He doesn't want to show it. He left the room. Now, what is the gain in that? The point is that it's not written in the book. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not what happened. But the point is, it's consistent with what we know about the characters and that kind of experience. And so what happened is, now you've entered into their life. The gospel has become alive for you. You are a participant in that. So something you've discovered that's not written down. What happened? This is the way spiritual life becomes a reality. It's no longer becomes a spectator sport. You are part of you're there. You're part of it. And if my conviction is this, that with Kadamrita, if you really do immerse your mind in that, you will discover many things that aren't written down there. And which will make the scene come alive for you. You will actually feel the company of those people. And then once you have the company, you see, we are creatures of habit. We imitate. Our mind is very plastic. If you keep the company of Sri Ramakrishna, you'll start thinking about God. Even whether you know what that means even, you'll start thinking in that way. So that's the way spiritual life is strengthened. So those are some of the disciplines. I can tell you more, but often many of these things are things you invent for yourself. One last one I'll tell you, and then we'll close. Is it really past 8:30?
Okay.
Okay, one last one I'll tell you, and I'll close. That we used to practice these things, these kind of disciplines. I mean, I'm telling you about them because we went through them, and we were inventing them out for ourselves. One of the things we wanted to do was, we know that if you hear something, how well can you remember it? So we used to go to our Sunday lectures. Swami Sarvagatananda was speaking, And it was a game between myself, Ram, and Cyrus. There was another devotee named Cyrus, 3 of us. And our goal was at the end of the lecture to repeat the lecture. Not word for word, but I will say, okay, I'll say it's my turn. Okay, what did Swami say? Okay, he made 30 points. Number 1, number 2. So it's possible. The point is that that does again 2 things. One, it strengthens your mind. Second thing, Swami went to some trouble to think about what to say. Right? And made those points. You're now remembering them. Now you can come home and write them down. If you ever heard Swami Adiswarananda lecture, perhaps some of you are too young for us, but he was the Swami in New York for a while. And if you don't pay attention, you'll miss a lot of what he's trying to say. He must have thought very seriously about each of his lectures, because I don't remember him using notes. And if you fall asleep in that, then you'll wake up suddenly and he'll say, the 5th aspect, what happened to the first 4? What were you saying? So you have to pay attention. So he's put a lot of thought into what he's saying, and he's not using notes. That means it's possible. It's possible to remember the coherently, logically develop a set of points. So why can't we develop that skill? Yeah, you can. Practice, just practice. And all of those things, remember, as we're doing it in the context of our spiritual sadhana. We're not trying to become just to get a powerful mind by itself can be dangerous too. Only when it's inspired by a spiritual goal will it be a good constructive tool. Otherwise, we're always being ruined by some people who have powerful minds, unfortunately. So powerful mind together with spiritual idealism, spiritual perspective, then you become a force for good for yourself and for others. Okay, stop. What's the closing chant? And then? Janini? Okay, so you lead the closing chant, please. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu Jananim Sharadam Devi